Welcome back to our mini-series on optimistic trends. Counter to what you may have been led to believe, the world is getting better on many fronts. We are often think that everything's getting worse. Most people believe that things are getting worse or at least staying the same. But that's not what the data shows. The data shows that everything is getting better, which allows us to be better investors, better with our money and all these things. So I want to negate some of this catastrophic propaganda that's out there by sharing with you 10 plus of the world's most optimistic trends. From this book, 10 Global Trends Every Smart Person Should Know. You can pick it up on Amazon. There's links in the blog. That way I hope I'm not infringing on any copyrights. You can read most of this in the preview of the book on Google anyways. But it's definitely worth the read. It's a nice coffee table book. There's lots of nice pictures and stuff in there. We have it in our office. It's just a good reminder that things are getting better. So pick that up. But in the meantime, and I don't get any affiliation fees or anything like that. I just think it's an interesting read. But let's continue right on. We covered 3 last week. Go back and listen to that if you haven't so far. Again, if you are normally a podcast listener, you may want to either watch this on YouTube or go on the blog. You can see the graphs for some of these trends, but we'll jump right back in with optimistic trend number 4, peak population, right? And so, we talked before about, the last week about how the population has grown 8-fold over the last 200 years, from 1 billion people to 8 billion people, and that we are, while we are using up resources, we are not depleting them anytime soon. There seems to be plenty of resources to go around. But if this population is still rising, because the trend for population growth is still up, we are still increasing in people. If you go find a world clock counter, right, or a population clock, it shows that number continue to increase. More people are born than die every day. So when does this end? It's, the population is still rising. When will it end? And based on estimates of the people who seem to know the most about these things and have done all this different math and put all these different things together, the world population will likely peak around 9.8 billion around the year 2080. And then it should actually begin to fall off slightly after that, and then maybe reach some kind of equilibrium at some point, far after probably any of us are alive. But the world's population is basically going to peak just under 10 billion people. And the primary cause of this is education and economic advancement, right? Most of the population growth that we see now is in developing countries, where many children are required. And so folks in poorer countries and developing countries, they have more children than folks do in developed nations. And part of that is they hope that some will survive, right? The mortality rate for children is much lower, unfortunately still, and that's also increasing. That's another trend for a different time. But as people are lifted out of poverty, as this great enrichment is happening, and as the world is getting richer and more technologically advanced, and more things are available, more opportunities for education, for better work, for all these things, people tend to start having less children, right? And so the trends clearly show that the richer a country gets, the more economic opportunity a country has, the fewer children they have. And as more and more developing countries are pulled into the middle class, more are given more education and economic opportunities, they have less children. And while it is completely trite to call it a quality over quantity thing, that's precisely what happens, right? And as the poverty curve sharpens downwards, the population curve will also start bending out towards no longer increasing until it finally caps out, and then should even begin to decrease. And part of that too is just general structures, right? For a long time, we've lived off of a bigger younger generation supporting older generations, and eventually that's going to start shrinking. Where if on average households have 2 kids per household, then it's no longer increasing anymore, and they may even go down to 1 per household, or less than 2 per 2 parents. And but obviously other improvements, other things that we're going to do should be able to, and as more people be able to support themselves in retirement and retire successfully and stay successfully retired on their own savings and the only things they've built, and they don't need the younger generations to support them, we will no longer need this pyramid structure of larger and larger subsequent generations to support the older ones. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of things that go into it, but the population should taper off right around 10 billion, and that'll be it. So there we go. If you ever wondered how big is this world going to get, 10 billion people. It's not going to continue on forever. It'll cap out. Trend number 5, optimistic trend number 5, the end of famine, right? So with the population growing, right, from 8 billion all the way up to 10 billion. Here's the perennial question, right? Can we feed 10 billion people? The answer is yes, we can feed all those people. And it's evident to anyone looking around, right, at developed nations that we are no longer lacking in calories, right? But what about the world's poorest populations, poorest regions like sub-Saharan Africa and some of these other ones, which also have the highest population growth. So the places that have the least amount of resources and the least amount of food are also growing the most. Well, in 1960, real quick. So the average man needs between 2,200 and 2,800 calories per day, and the average woman, active woman, needs 1,800 to 2,000 calories per day. And so back in the 1960s, the average number of calories consumed per day was for the world about 2,200 and for sub-Saharan Africa about 1,800. So the world was in that range of having enough food, but the poor regions, even as soon as 1960, were still below that, right? Not getting the recommended amount of calories to keep you healthy and give you plenty of energy to go out and do things. But in 2017, those numbers have continued to grow, and by 2017, the world in general is at 2,900 plus calories per day on average, which is more than even an active man needs, which is why we get some of our other problems that we have, right? But the sub-Saharan Africa also has now reached 2,400 plus calories per day. So even in the poorest regions, people are getting enough food. And moreover, the poorest regions have seen the sharpest rise in these calories in the last 30 years. And so it was trending for a little bit for a while, and now it's really spiked up, and they've really increased those, and the trends show no sign of slowing. So, how is this possible? Well, there's a much greater agricultural productivity due to the scientific progress, right? Thanks, Monsanto, I guess, right? There's all kind of problems with that and GMOs and all that stuff that we rage about here in the developed world and some of the side effects of that. But in general, for the developing world who are just trying to, have enough food to eat, it's been a very good thing for them. Number two, there's been a greater world wealth leads to more purchasing power, which means they can spend more on food, which stimulates production, right? More demand means more supply is going to jump in there to fill that demand. The spread of democracy has significantly reduced the authoritarian government interference in countries getting enough food. And obviously a lot of improved communication and transportation means that wealthier countries, when they have surpluses, can help support either donating or selling for cheap to countries that are going through food shortages to carry them through that. So, while famine rocked the world for almost all of human history, they are pretty much gone at this point outside of war-torn areas. So the end of famine, it is going away. We do have enough food. All the trends are pointing in the right direction. We'll have plenty of food to feed everyone. Optimistic trend number 6, there is now more land for nature. If you would guess, if you had a guess, would you guess that the global levels of forests in the world are growing or shrinking? Do you hear more about deforestation or afforestation? If you're like me, I'd never even heard of afforestation, right, until now. And maybe I'm dumb, and I'm also the last one to that party, but that's all I seem to hear about is deforestation and what a big problem it is, and it can be, right? And yet, 865,000 square miles of tree canopy were added to the global forest between 1982 and 2016. That's a land area larger than Alaska and Montana combined of nothing but trees growing and added to the total population of trees in the world. And as with all these trends, it's continuing to go in the right direction. There shows no sign of those additions stopping or flatlining. Continents like Asia and Europe and North America have had such a positive net addition to forest, right? There's some deforestation going in some areas, but there's more trees being planted and more afforestation in other areas, that they have a net positive impact on the global scale. And it more than makes up for other areas like South America and Africa that have negative effects. And all this tree coverage, right, is like a sponge for carbon dioxide. It's pulling a lot of carbon emissions out of the air. It doesn't eliminate it, right? It's not the only thing, or it's not going to make some of the climate issues that we may be facing go away, but it does help. And so more trees is a good thing. I'm no tree hugger, but I do love trees, and this is definitely a positive thing that trees are making a resurgence, and we're having more and more forests now than we've had in a long, long time. So that's a good thing. Number 7, Planet City. So throughout most of human history, people lived in rural areas, right? And even in 1900, 41% of Americans worked on farms. Today, that's less than 2%. Less than 2% of Americans work in agriculture. And cities are where all the innovation happens, right? Where all the advancement comes from. And according to World Bank, right, quote, no country has grown to middle income without industrializing and urbanizing. None has grown to high income without vibrant cities. So cities are where the wealth is created, where good things tend to happen. So cities are good for the planet as the inhabitants actually emit less carbon, use less electricity, and have a smaller land footprint compared to rural dwellers, right? So that's part of where afforestation comes from, right? Is people are moving out of rural areas, and into cities, and it allows more space for trees to come from. And so, what is the percentage of people that live in cities? Well, in 1950, it was 29%. In 2018, it's 55%. And in 2100, it's estimated to be at 85% of the world's population will live in cities. And so even if you personally hate cities, right? Maybe you're listening to this and you live in the country, or you want to live in the country and you hate cities, well, this is still good, right? Because that means the more people that move to cities means the more land that's available to you for you to enjoy. So, all in all, people moving to cities is a good thing, and we'll continue to see more of that. And number 8, last one for today, is democracy on the march. And while you may hear the rhetoric of the end of democracy, right, and how there's this big wave of fascism coming, or this big wave of communism coming, depending on who you're listening to and who's screaming about it, the trends still disagree. Aside from the World War II era, democracy has been spreading from only a handful of countries in 1800 to roughly 50% of all countries in 2023 are democracies. Right. And further, autocracies have been steadily decreasing from nearly 70% of governments being an autocracy to now just over 10%. And while there are blips in those trends and all that, they're all still going the right way. Democracy is going up, autocracies are going down, and everything seems to be trending in the right direction as far as global governments go over long periods of time. Yes, we still see issues, we still see problems, there are still issues out there. But again, the trends, the things we need to focus on, are going in the right direction. So, quick review of the optimistic trends we've had so far from last week and this week. The world is getting richer. Poverty is ending, hopefully within this decade. We are not running out of resources as fast as some would have you believe. The population will peak under 10 billion people. Famine is ending. We'll be able to feed everyone. There is more land now for nature than there has been in a long, long time. We're moving to cities, which helps nature, and democracy is still spreading. All great trends, all things that are positive and improving. We'll be back next week with even more positive trends to help you be encouraged to stay optimistic and to put data behind that. We're not being optimistic for the sake of believing in pie in the sky theories, or just, hey, we're just going to choose to be optimistic even though everything's going down. No, everything's going up, and that's why we're optimistic. So we are rationally optimistic around here, and these are some of the reasons why. So we'll be back next week with even more reasons. We'll see you then. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did enjoy that, you would love being a part of our free membership community. It's called Retire Membership, and you can sign up today completely for free. When you do that, you get a host of bonus and exclusive content that we don't give out anywhere else. For example, you can buy my book, 3D Retirement Income, on Amazon, but if you become a Retire member, we will send you one for free or give you the audiobook and ebook just for signing up. You also get additional bonus content, exclusive content, including Client Corner insights from some of the best minds in behavioral investing, workbooks to go along with our workshops to help you get the most out of it, and more ongoing bonus and exclusive content. Some of this you can't get anywhere else, and so we would love for you to join our community. You can join now at retiremembership.com. Otherwise, there's a link in the description of this video where you can sign up. All we want to do is continue to give you the best information out there so that you can retire successfully and stay successfully retired. So you can go in there, do that on our website. There's also a longer form podcast. I think it's episode 80 that will help explain what it is and what we're trying to do with Retire Membership. But join now for free. Get this and much more exclusive content by joining us today. We look forward to seeing you there, and thanks for watching. Cheers.